cloud. It's no longer on your internal servers or database. So you can get rid of these people also that were maintaining the infrastructure, and maybe you can move to the service model where if you have a low trade volume, you don't have to pay the license to get all the infrastructure that you pay as a service, and so it's more flexible in terms of billing and cost.
Yeah. The challenge of that is none of the software vendors have yet come with and we're doing that here, Finastra come up with a target operating model. So people just, if it's this I want to do, this is how it's done. Easy. I like to make a parallel that imagine you go buy a car, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you need to have a mechanic at home to do the brakes. Because the guy that sold you the car really doesn't know how to do the brakes, and it says you do the brakes any way you wish. These are the torque on the screws, and this is the specification of the brake pads, but sorry, I don't do it for you. You need to have internally in-house people to do it for you. It would be really difficult for you to have a car, right?
Yeah, of course.
This is how banks do, right? They buy the software, they have the people to operate, they have the people to employ. So JP Morgan has more programmers than Google. I think they still have more people coding than Google.
Yeah, but they don't buy software, right? They build in-house. They have proprietary in-house software. I mean,
they're starting to buy now because that's no competitive advantage for 95% of the business they do.
So there's an opportunity for software vendors in these large banks that are today not the focus of the main vendors, right?
But how do you think? Do you think it's easy for you to go to JP Morgan and replace their interest rate swaps trading business front to back? No one knows what the system does. No one knows what goes down. It was coded internally, and they don't want to touch it. So in theory, they should be saying, all right, let's get Finastra, let's get Calypso, let's get Murex, let's just install the system. Every single thing that they did in that has failed. And my theory on that is because they don't have internally the domain knowledge needed to understand what's the target operating model that you need to do certain things.
When you say they, you mean at JP Morgan or you mean on the software
company? The banks and the software company, both. Because both have been operating on a very old model.
Okay.
Right. And then you go to the lower guys, right? The guys that do, the local banks, the Casta Depot in Paris, the Casa di Risparmio in Italy, and the Cajas in Madrid, and every single building society in the UK, every single financial system you have the smaller banks that give loans, take deposits, and they have mismatches in terms of liquidity, right? When the money is going to come in and out, in terms of payout, fixed float, that sort of stuff, right? And credit. Credit they can manage. That's how they make the money. That's their competitive advantage. But they and liquidity, so for the liquidity and market risk, meaning the mismatch if it's float against fixed and all that they could be doing in capital markets, right? But they don't do it because it's too expensive. Right? I talked to a bank in the US and the guy told me I can only do loans up for 5 years. I lose business because I cannot go 10 years because I cannot do an interest rate swap to hedge my interest rate risk and rates are moving higher. So I just cannot do it.
Yep.
But if you do an interest rate swap, that gets sorted. I say, but I don't have the infrastructure to do it. I don't have to process it, post to the general ledger. I don't know what payments are going to be generated. I don't know how to value it on the curve. And that's where I think the value is, and none of the software vendors apart from us are looking to that. How do you tackle the lower tier banks?
I heard that, for example, Calypso has an offer called Bank in a Box, right? I would say maybe a bit less sophisticated than the full Murex solution, and that is adapted to those regional local banks for their needs.
Well, Bank in a Box is basically you having a target operating model, so they have that, but they don't. Calypso is is almost not a system. It's almost a operating system. You can do